So the big idea in Chapter 20, Section 2 about planning and budgeting is, once more, we have to make economic choices dealing with scarcity. Terms that we'll see, such as budget, income, expense, credit, APR, collateral, and bankruptcy, all have to do with individual finance, something that you should all become familiar with, and hopefully we can learn about this section. So I already asked you guys about budget. You know, your bank account, as you start using a bank, will keep a record of all of your spendings and all of your earnings, all the money coming in, all of the money coming out. I love it. It's on my phone, shows me a simple spreadsheet I can understand very easily. The only difference between what I'm seeing on my phone and a checkbook is, with a checkbook, you fill out each purchase at the time of the purchase. You fill out each income at the time of the receipt of that. So it's a little more current than what you would see on a bank account. And so that's why people are still encouraged to keep a record, an actual written record in a checkbook of your transactions. Okay, so what does making a budget look like, and what does following it look like? A budget, really, is just a plan for how you're going to make money and how you're going to spend money. And at the very least, I would advise you all come up with a plan. It doesn't have to be a meticulous record of all transactions forever, but you need to have some general plan of how much money you're going to make each month. What are your fixed costs? What are your variable costs? What's your discretionary income versus your disposable income? If you know those four things and how to work those four things, you can come up with a basic plan for your budget. Okay, so basic budgeting terms. Number one is simply income. Income, that is the money you received. It can be from labor, it can be from a gift, it can be whatever. Any money coming in, ergo, it's called income. Secondly, expenses. You need to understand expenses. That is money going out. You know, and again, expenses are lumped. That could be bills, it could be restaurants, it could be we're going to El Chapala for dinner. Great. You know, that's part of our expenses. It's everything, the money you're spending. And then finally, the balance. That is the money left over. Now, some of you guys are doing weekly budgets because you're paid on Friday. Some of you do bi-weekly because you're paid every 2 weeks. We do a monthly budget because we're paid at the end of each month. And so we have to think about how we're going to spend money for the entire month. So people do it different ways. But once more, the balance is any money left over at the end of the month. Ideally, it is a surplus. That means that you're making more money than you spend each month. There's a lot you can do with surplus. Me, you know, I tend to be a little more materialistic. I'm like, yay, I have a surplus this month. There's this thing I was wanting to buy. Woo, yay. Or yay, I have a surplus this month. I'm going to get my bike fixed. You know, or yay, surplus this month. I'm going to go out. Let's go see a movie or something. Unfortunately, I've certainly been in the situation of having a deficit. You know, like when we were first married, money was really tight, and she was still in grad school, and I still had a car payment. We were struggling to make ends meet, and so that's obviously bad. So how do you make a budget? What do you need in order to have a budget? First off, you need to understand, what are you going to spend? That's where fixed costs, variable costs, discretionary, disposable. You know, what are your fixed costs? What things are you going to have to spend money on, non-negotiable? You know, right now, are you paying for your cell phone? Is that part of your monthly budget or weekly budget? So is that something you have to account for? Are you paying for any gas if you're driving? Is that something you have to think about? So about how much gas are you using per month? For me, since I've got a commute, it's about $150 a month. I know off the top, $150 a month is going to go to gas. It's a lot, believe me. And then finally, I'm going to record what I earn. I need to be aware of how much money I'm making each month. I know the exact number after taxes, and we watch it closely. When we get a little more each month, that's great. When we get a little less, that's not so great. You know, really the big variable there often comes down to what are the healthcare costs each year. Those insurance rates often go up each year, and energy rates often also go up each year. So for example, where we were paying $100 a month for energy, now we're looking at about $108, which $8 a month doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to be aware of every little piece of where that money's going. And then finally, you have to analyze that data. You know, I'm an Excel fan. I like spreadsheets. She does too. We can look at that and we can analyze very easily. Okay, how much is going to this each month? How much is going to this each month? Is this one changing? Is this one changing? And then finally, You want to have a surplus. That's the idea. The better a plan you have and the more disciplined you are in following it, the idea is that you have money left over at the end of each month, that you are in control of your wallet, not the other way around. And this involves monitoring spending closely. Hopefully it's easy at your age, where you're not making a ton of money and you're not having to spend a ton of money, and you can learn that way. And we plan on teaching our kid that way by giving them an allowance that they have to earn in some way so that they hold value to it, and then teaching them how to budget with that so that they can learn how to spend their money carefully, how to be aware of where their money's going, and how to hopefully be able to save up for the big things they want. Now, I'm notorious for this. I'm always scheming for ways to raise my income. Is there a second job I can take on? I'm always applying for at least one other third job. Just got feelers out there, resumes out there for online positions all over the place. Why? Because I'm a big fan of increasing revenue, because that's awesome. That means more fun stuff. Like, I'm always scheming to how can I find ways to increase my outdoor account, because that's my fun account. Like, how can I take more trips? How can I buy more cool things that I want versus just having to deal with the necessities? So that's me. I like to always think about increasing revenue, whereas my wife is better at cutting cost, at thinking like, how can we be more disciplined with our budget? So again, it's just two schools of thought. Next, you need to understand credit. I think that when you become an adult, you will want to, and you will really need to, establish a line of credit. But it's a very careful decision that you need to make, and it's something that you need to do with a bit of foreknowledge. So, credit, that is borrowing money to pay for items or services, allows consumers to have whatever good or service that you need or want ahead of your ability to pay for it outright. Now, establishing a line of credit is very important, because someday you're going to need to rent an apartment. Maybe sooner rather than later. I don't know. Maybe one of your friends here at the school, you and your friend, your plan after early college is to rent an apartment together. That's wonderful. Hopefully you have parents that can co-sign for you, because what the person renting the apartment to you needs to know is that you are dependable. And a credit history shows on paper that you are dependable, that you can make payments in a timely fashion, and that you can handle the responsibility of a monthly bill. Because right now, if you have never had a credit card, you have no way to prove that. Now, hopefully you have parents who have good credit, who can establish good faith and can show on paper that they can pay their bills on time. But if you don't, and you don't have parents with good credit, that's something you just need to carefully begin to think about. So again, a few terms you need to know in regards to credit. Number one is the lender. So let's say you get a credit card through Discover. We're fans of Discover because once you have a good credit rating, they have a low interest rate. So it's a 5% fixed interest rate that we have through Discover. So Discover is our lender. A lender charges interest. The term that you need to know for interest is APR, or annual percentage rate. That means the annual cost of credit as a percentage of the amount borrowed. Lots of people run their budgets in different ways. Some people use credit cards for everything and pay the balance at the end of the month, and they get rewards that way. Our personal preference is to not touch the credit card. We have it literally frozen in the freezer. It's kind of a silly symbolic thing, but we were pretty proud when we got our credit card balance paid off, and we stuck it in a piece of Tupperware, we poured water on it, and we put it in the freezer. And so now if we need the credit card, we actually have to go and thaw it out. It makes us think about whatever credit decision we're going to use for a day or two while it thaws out. So again, credit cards are a valuable thing because our credit rating is strong, because to my knowledge, we've never missed a payment on a bill in the time that we've been married. And I don't think I've ever missed a payment in my life on anything. So that gives us a strong credit rating, meaning that when we went to buy our house, that was not an issue. They looked at our credit rating, they were like, okay, you guys are good to go on that piece. Okay. Now, a credit rating, I've already mentioned, evaluates how well the borrower will repay the loan. There's a lot that goes into a credit score. If you have a strong credit score, then if I'm going to rent you a house, a strong credit score is a good sign. That means you have a stable job. That means you have a history of paying your bills on time. That means you're probably somebody I can trust, and I would be more likely to say, sure, you can rent my house for the summer. I'm traveling, so why not? I'm more likely to do that as opposed to if you have a low credit score, that means you've missed a payment from time to time. What am I supposed to do if you can't pay your rent? That's a problem. If you're renting my house and you can't pay your rent, that's a problem. I don't want to have to deal with that problem. That's a super big headache. Do I have to call the police to evict you? Oh my gosh, it's a mess. You might destroy my property if you're getting evicted. Had friends who've done that. No. So again, if you have a strong credit rating, awesome. If not, hopefully your parents will co-sign for you someday. If not, your other option is collateral. Now, the lender may or may not accept collateral, but collateral is property or valuable items serving as security for a loan. So I've done this before. I don't know if you ever have. Like, you bought an item in a store and you forgot your wallet. I've been there. I'm like at the register, like, oh, this is embarrassing. Let me go grab my wallet. If it's something really valuable, then you might try to say, and it's probably not going to work, but you say, tell you what, I'll be right back. I'll leave my cell phone with you. I'll be right back. In a way, what you're doing is leaving collateral. You're saying, I'm not going to run off without my cell phone. So here, hold on to this. I'll be right back. That's a version of collateral. You can pledge collateral legally. That is when we borrowed money to buy our house is the collateral. If we can't pay the mortgage, we lose the house, bottom line. It's the same with the car. So we borrowed money for the car, we can't pay the car. A remortgage is another version of this. So you're borrowing money off the value of your house. Credit. So sources of credit usually require some form of down payment. This is another good faith offering. So let's say that you're going to get a bike on installment. So when I first got my mountain bike, I couldn't afford it outright. This was a lot of money, so I got it on installment. That means that I'm making payments toward it. Well, I had to make a down payment first. And so it was like a $500 down payment, and then I can make payments each month on it. And that's a form of credit. Banks, savings and loans, credit unions, finance companies offer credit. You can get it from a lot of different places. The bank is probably the most reliable, but also credit cards are the most convenient. Okay, other sources of credit. The most common, of course, are credit cards. Let's say, I get to the point where I can't continue to fix my boat. I've had these before where they break so badly they basically won't float anymore. I can't fix them. Like, they won't make it down a river. I just sink. At that point, with my interest, it becomes a necessity to me to have a boat. And so I have bought one on a credit card before. It is kind of a scary position to be in. So I bought the boat on a credit card, and then I paid it off over time. My goal, of course, since we're very conservative with our finances, is to pay it off quickly, so as quickly as I can. But that is, we used a credit card to charge or borrow the money to pay for an item. And that means that I now have a monthly payment. Now, for example, my cell phone, I don't know, I can't say that I bought the cheapest phone. I bought a nice phone. It was a Google Pixel. Probably didn't need one that nice, but I did. Anyway, I wanted the one with 120 gigabytes of storage, and I wanted the 2-year warranty, so it wound up costing a pretty penny. Well, it was a little more than I had in cash, so I got this on installment. I've had it for about 1.5 years now. I'm still making payments on the silly phone. Well, it's about $30 a month, 0 interest. I can live with that, so I'm making payments even on the phone I've got. That's a form of credit. Now, what you need to be careful about is that credit cards can charge high interest rates. The only reason I got this phone versus whatever cheapest Android phone there was because it was a 0 interest rate. I knew that even though I'm paying for this over 2 years, I'm not having to pay any extra. But now, had I just ran this on Discover, I would be paying the cost of this phone plus 5% interest, which is recalculated annually, meaning compounding annually. So if I don't pay it off in a certain point, it's going to be even more than 5%. So that's where the fine print on credit cards comes in. You can wind up paying significantly more for something if you pay it over the course of a long period of time. So benefits of credit. Number one, the obvious. It allows you to get what you want sooner. Had I tried to save up for this phone, it would take forever. It would already be obsolete by the time they've already stopped selling the Pixels. So I wouldn't have been able to save up for the Pixel. So I got it. Yay. It also teaches financial discipline because I'm paying for this out of my second job, so I got to keep that second job. That means I got to drag myself to work on a Wednesday night every Wednesday. So I guess it keeps me disciplined to a point. Like this means I have to go work every Wednesday night. I don't really feel like it, but I have to, so there you go. Teaches me discipline. The drawbacks. And this is something you need to think very carefully about before you use credit. Of course, you could wind up spending more than you can afford, and this means bankruptcy, and this is a very scary situation to be in. Bankruptcy means the inability to pay your debt. You are legally allowed to declare personal bankruptcy once per life. You gotta wait for the next life to get the next one. But once per life, you may declare bankruptcy. And what that means is that all your debts are absolved, your credit history goes to zero and remains at zero for 7 years. That means no one's going to loan you money, no one's gonna touch you. You're gonna have trouble renting an apartment unless someone will co-sign for you. So good luck finding a place to live. Good luck getting even a car. You're going to have to pay cash for those things, but you get that one-time bailout. And that's not a good situation. My goal in life is to never find myself in that situation. Another drawback. Let's say, that's the extreme is bankruptcy. But let's just say you miss a payment. I have to be honest, I did find myself in this situation one time where I had a surgery and I had some high medical bills. In the first month of adjusting to those medical bills, I had to call up Chase Bank, who owned my car loan, and I had to say, is there a way I can skip a payment? And, oh man, you should have heard her over the phone. She was like, what do you mean? I said, can I take a month off from car payments? And she said, well, so she gave me an education on how debt works. And she said, it doesn't work like that. And I was like, well, what happens if I miss a payment? And she said, well, there's a strike on your credit score. There's going to be interest on that missed payment. Basically, you're going to have to pay for the car longer. And so we had to weigh that decision as a couple, and we had to agree, okay, dang it, we got to miss a payment that month. Lesson learned, it was not a good situation, and that actually did hurt our credit rating a little bit. So, even the borrowers have responsibilities. So if you're going to borrow money, you need to have a plan of how to get it paid for. In my case of the phone, it was just, okay, $30 a month, I'll deduct that from my Blue Ridge income. Fair enough. That's going to require some skills in budgeting. Because for us, $30 a month is really not a lot in the scheme of things because we have a mortgage. That's a lot every month. We have a baby coming. That's a lot. We have cars that are getting older that we're having to repair a lot. I've got to go to the shop during fourth period to get a stupid tire fixed. There's always something going on. So we have a sinking fund for cars. So we have all of these other budgeting items that require quite a bit of skill to manage. And finally, if you're going to borrow money, and I'm telling you, it's something that you'll need to do at some point. You need to read the fine print. That is, what's the interest rate? What are the penalties for a missed payment? What is your credit score? How does this relate to your credit score? What's the minimum payment versus You know, how much is going to principal, how much is going to interest, like educate yourself about all these financial terms. And then finally, should credit be hard to obtain? And this is a two-edged sword too, because you guys need to establish a line of credit. So thankfully, credit right now is easy to obtain, but it comes with that responsibility to be careful.